But Greg, you brought up a good point of learning how to learn, which I think is interesting. And that's something we really preach in the, well, not preach, but we teach in the program in that we teach you some languages in the cohort. We teach a full stack curriculum where we do HTML, CSS, JavaScript and for the front end, and then Ruby on Rails and Postgres for the back end. Could you talk about like kind of when was that point where you kind of had to take what you learned in the classroom and learn something else? You know, like what was that point where you had to really learn, you know, use your learning how to learn skills and learn something new? Yi, do you want to kind of kick us off? Or yeah, if you don't mind, I'll
sure.
come back to you real quick. Yeah. Sorry about that. Yi, do you mind start kicking us off real quick?
Yeah, definitely. So I was not one of the, like, I was not somebody in the cohort who immediately got everything. And I'm really, I guess I was really shy. I had a lot of imposter syndrome. I was really afraid. I was like, oh my gosh, everybody getting this? Like, it's complete silence. Nobody's asking any questions, you know? But I really learned that I needed extra help. I needed like the help during actual instruction. I needed to stop and be like, hey, Sarah, I'm so sorry. You just explained this, but can you really explain this again? Or, oh, I saw that you said this. Is that what you mean? And at first, it you know, I took a big hit. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm the only person asking like so many questions, you know. But I really learned that when you ask questions, you help everybody, you know. There are a lot of people who, you know, are also as shy to ask questions, you know. And even the people who are super on top of it and really get the content really quickly, even you asking a question will help them out too, because it'll either like affirm or like not confirm what they already knew, or be helpful as like a summary of what they did understand. And so for me, I guess I'm more of an active learner in that way, where you know, I could read a bunch of content, I could look at the slides and whatever, but I really do need that guidance. And so I'm not sure if this really answers your question, but that's something that I really did definitely. One of the study habits I picked up, asking more questions. And we also had like study sessions, and I've definitely helped like personally mentor a few people from my cohort and also the cohort right after me too. And that really ingrained a lot of the knowledge in me. So, you know, being the teacher is also really helpful because it forces you to really understand the content. So if you get a chance, if you have the time, I really do recommend doing that as well.
That's great. And is there anything at Notch 8 that maybe that you were kind of tasked with learning how to, like something brand new that maybe is kind of outside of the scope that you learned in the classroom?
Yeah, definitely. So one thing that I did pick up Notch 8 is working on accessibility audits to make sure that websites are accessible, you know, to people who are hard of hearing or hard of seeing. And so that was something that was completely new. And my role itself is actually completely new to the company. And so I had to do a lot of my own individual research. And I definitely gained a lot of confidence in my research skills, looking at documentation and yeah, really scouring the internet through what I learned at Learn. Um, at Learn, there's obviously a lot of good material. The instruction is amazing as well, but there are going to be some times when you're going to have to really dig in deep to accomplish what you want to do for your project. And so I definitely learned how to knowing what to ask, knowing what to Google, like that's so important.
Knowing what to Google, that's a great point. Knowing just how to leverage search engines could be such a powerful tool. Greg, do you want to kind of chime in and add anything?
Yeah, absolutely. So just a quick point on the knowing the right question to ask and knowing what to Google. That's about as important as knowing your code. And in fact, knowing your code is probably the least important thing that you will probably take from Learn, which I think is saying something for the program. Because a lot of the times when you get into a job, you are tasked with solving problems, and they don't really always require a ton of code. They will require code 100%, and you will be coding, but a lot of the time will be spent thinking about how you deliver a solution to the problem that you're being tasked with. And so knowing what questions to ask to uncover the problem a little bit better and understand it is going to be important. If you work at a more tech-focused company as well, your product managers are and other people in the company, they're going to rely on you to think about how to provide solutions for the end user. So I'll give you an example. when I first started IDW Publishing, I made the mistake of getting a job where there was no other developer at the company. So it was just me, myself, and whatever Google had for me at the time, which completely freaks me out. But it was something that I had to learn. Like, it was a new skill that I had to learn. On top of that, we were working with e-commerce. We were working with a WordPress and WooCommerce solution. So not only that, but I had to transfer my skill set over to PHP instead of Ruby on Rails. But the thing that was nice about this is that, and I didn't understand it at the time, I do now, hindsight being 2020, but the thing that is nice is that the skills you get at Learn, again, are the frameworks and the foundations in how to think about your programs and your applications and just creating solutions. And I think that was, that above all, really important, because honestly, the way that you program certain things is going to be important. Yeah, and syntax is important. You will learn that. You're always going to be constantly learning that as you're learning and developing new skills and new languages and new pieces of technology. But again, the foundations are, what problem are we trying to solve? How are we going to solve it? And then how do we break it into bite-sizable chunks so that we're delivering the project just in time? So Learn definitely did a great job of doing that. And then my internship as well. I internshiped at Notch 8, which I found to be extremely helpful, because a lot of the project management aspect of those things really came into play. So, I mean, a lot of it was grueling nights, spending time after work learning just the basics of PHP and learning how to understand the differences between the syntax in PHP, between the syntax in Ruby, and between the syntax in JavaScript and stuff like that. But a lot of it was actually just coming through networking with some peers that were a lot smarter than I was, and then getting much better at asking pertinent questions to uncover the actual problem you're trying to solve, not just the stated problem. Because a lot of the times, if you're talking to somebody that's non-technical, they'll have an idea, but part of your hat is going to be how to uncover the full problem as a journalist. So studying journalism is actually not the worst thing to do too. So if you, yeah, asking questions, I think is extremely important.
And Shazeen, is there anything you'd like to add on top of that as well?
Yeah. So I mean, right now, for my backend development job that I'm gonna start, they're using Spring Boot versus in Ruby on Rails. So I have to learn kind of new stuff as well. So kind of I'm doing that same thing, learning how something is, and then have an activity after, because that's kind of the way we did it at Learn. So just been trying to practice creating my own projects with starting with Java, and then even I have like a trying to learning to do projects in Spring Boot as well. So honestly, that's pretty much what I've been doing. Just been using that same structure, you know, watching a tutorial, create an activity for myself, and then build that activity by myself. I know, like, yeah, Google is good, but sometimes I try to build an activity without having to Google so much. Like, I want to Google at least 20% of the time versus the whole time I'm trying to code. Because to me, I feel like, okay, I feel like I get the concept if I'm Googling less. So the idea is to get the concept. And then, because once you know the concept, you can think of what is this language versus of how do I build this? You instead say, what is available for me so I can build this, versus not even knowing how to build something because you don't even know the concept, versus just what is, you know, Spring Boot have available for me to build this. I know I need to do this and that. I just need to know the syntax, because syntax is just different, but concepts are usually the same throughout everything. So if you ever freak out because you're in a new language, that's what kept me calm. So I just kept telling myself, same concept, just looks different. Same concept, just looks different. Like, that was my mantra. Like, at the end of the day, my internship was Angular, and I'm like, at the end, it's just JavaScript. The same thing I was doing in React, I'm going to do in the same exact thing, but the way I connect things just looks different. So just remind yourself, concepts are pretty much the same everywhere. So every time you get to a language, just kind of like learn the syntax, but see what concepts are similar to things you already know. That's why it's good to know one language really well. So when you do have to move on to another language, it's easier. Because I mean, I've learned what Ruby, on Rails and learn. My team job is actually using Express and Node. And then my full-time day job is using Java and Spring Boot. I have to know so many different things. So instead of not freaking out, I just tell myself concepts are the same, syntax is just different. So I know, because I have to work with so many things, I know I'm gonna have to look up syntax, but I just have to like keep calm and just think syntax are the same. I just need to know the syntax. So things are gonna be different. You're gonna have a job where you're gonna do something completely different from what you learned. So while if you are going to a bootcamp or learning on your own, just really bring down those concepts, and that's honestly what you'll need to be successful.
I wanted to piggyback off what Shazeen said, and even the CEO of Notch8, the company I work at, like even he does not remember every single like syntax rule or every single thing about like indentation or punctuation and whatnot. What I've read or what I've heard is that, you know, learning how to learn or learning how to program is more about understanding which tool to use. As like what Shazina is saying, you know, like there will be so many languages, rules change all the time. There are always new updates, new libraries, etc. But as long as you understand how the tools work, then you'll know what you need to pick up in order to accomplish your task. So good point, Shazina.